The twin suns of planet Dragon burned high in the sky, sending golden light across the great slave market of Sector 7G. The air was thick with noise. Aliens from every corner of the galaxy shouted bids, traded credits, and dragged away there. New property, each cage held a different kind of slave giant warriors with metal arms, telepaths with glowing eyes, fast runners with no fear. The auctions were fast, brutal, and loud. Slaves who were sold like meat, with no care, no questions. And then, silence fell near the back of the market. There was one cage left. It was small, dark, and covered in dust. Inside it sat a weak, thin creature, skin dirty, hair broken, back bent. His hands were tied, and his eyes stared at nothing. No one came near him. No one wanted him. He was a human. "Next item," the auctioneer shouted, stepping onto a floating platform. He looked at the cage and laughed. "This one." "Why is this still?" "Here." "Should have been thrown to the pit." Aliens gathered for fun. Not interest, they laughed too. Some threw stones at the cage. Others made bets if he would cry or speak. But the human said nothing. "Very well." The auctioneer called, "One last chance. Starting bid 1 credit. Do I hear one? Anyone? Anything?" No one moved. The crowd was bored. Some started leaving. Then a voice spoke from the shadows. "I'll take him." The crowd turned, surprised, from the back. A tall figure in a black cloak stepped forward. His face was hidden, his voice calm. He held up a single credit chip. The auctioneer blinked. "You want this one?" "He's not worth a broken bolt. I want him," the buyer said. "That's enough, isn't it?" The auctioneer shrugged. "Fine, sold." To the man in the shadows, 1 credit. "You're insane, friend." The crowd laughed again, harder this time. The buyer walked to the cage and unlocked it himself. The gate creaked open. The human inside looked up for the first time. His eyes were tired, but not empty. There was something deep in them. "Something watching, something waiting. Come," the buyer said. The human stood, slow but steady. He didn't speak, but he followed, one step after another, barefoot on the metal floor. As they walked through the crowd, whispers followed them. "Why? A human? Is he going to train it like a pet?" "Must be drunk." The buyer said nothing. But once they were out of the market and under the sky of Dragon, he spoke softly. "You remember your name?" The human shook his head slowly. "Do you know where you are?" The human paused, then whispered, "No, you're not a slave anymore." The buyer said, "You're mine now, but not like them. I'm going to show you the truth." The human looked at him. For a long second, something flickered behind his eyes. Then he nodded. They walked toward the transport shuttle at the edge of the city. A small ship, old and half-broken, waited for them. The human climbed in without a word. The buyer followed, shutting the hatch behind them, inside. The buyer finally removed his cloak. He was a human too, older, with scars on his face and a strange symbol burned into his neck. He sat across from the silent man and stared at him. "You're the last one," he said. "The others were taken sold. Or killed. You were left behind like trash, but I know better. I know what you are. Or what you were meant to be." The human still said nothing, but his hands clenched slowly, fingers curling into fists. "You were part of a plan," the buyer continued. "A plan they erased. A weapon they forgot, but I remember, and now we're going to find the truth." Outside the ship, the engines came alive. Flames shot out, dust flew high, and the old ship lifted from the surface of Dragon. Rising into the stars, down below, the empty cage sat in the dust, door open, silent, and in the auction office. The old alien who ran the records looked at his list, frowning. Strange. He muttered, that human was never supposed to be on the sale list. He was marked for destruction, not auction. How did he end up there? He picked up his cum device, his fingers shaking. "Better report this to the high command," he whispered. "They'll want to know someone bought Subject 9. The screen blinked red as the signal connected. Up in space, the human sat in silence, but his eyes now stared out the window. watching stars move by, and in his mind, a single word echoed, one he didn't remember learning, but felt burned into him. Awaken. Asterisk. The human woke up to silence. Not pain, not noise, just silence. Soft white lights glowed above him, and for the first time in years, he wasn't locked in a cage. He lay on a clean bed inside a small metal room. Everything smelled of dust and old machines, but the air was free. He could breathe. He sat up slowly. His body ached, his muscles were thin, but there was strength hidden deep inside, quiet and waiting like a fire under cold ash. Across the room, the buyer stood by a control panel, tapping on a glowing screen. His black cloak was gone, revealing simple clothes, rough hands, and eyes full of memory. "You're awake," the buyer said without turning. "Good, we don't have much time." The human tried to speak but stopped. His throat was dry. He swallowed and whispered, "Who are you?" The buyer turned to him, eyes sharp. "My name doesn't matter yet. What matters is what you are, and why you were left behind." The ship shook slightly as it passed through the edge of hyperspace. Outside the window, stars stretched like lines of light racing past. "You were part of a forgotten program," the buyer continued, walking closer. "Earth's final weapon before the fall. Humans designed you, trained you, then hid you when the empires came." The human blinked, confused. "I don't remember. I was just there, in the cage, always in the cage." "They erased your memory," the buyer said, "but not your instincts. Those remain. That's why you kept surviving, even when they starved you, hurt you, treated you like dirt. You didn't break." The human looked at his hands, thin but steady. He closed them into fists. The buyer sat across from him, leaning forward. "You have something inside you, a code. It was made by old Earth scientists. Secret, dangerous. They called it the Phoenix Protocol." "Why me?" the human asked. "Why was I left when the others were sold?" The buyer stared into his eyes. "Because they feared what you might become. You weren't sold because you were weak. You were left because you were too strong." Silence filled the room again. Only the hum of the ship's engines could be heard. "I don't feel strong," the human whispered. "Not yet," the buyer said, standing. "But you will." He walked to a locked storage box and opened it. Inside was a strange black device, half a helmet, covered in wires and old human symbols. "This is a neural tracer," the buyer said. "It'll help you remember pieces of who you were, but it will hurt." The human didn't flinch. He reached for it slowly. "Do it." The buyer placed the device over the human's head. Lights blinked red, then green. A soft tone filled the room, then Flashy was running through a burning hallway. Alarms screaming, gunfire behind him, soldiers shouting, something chasing him. Flash a woman's voice, calm and kind. "You were made for more. Remember that 9. Flash a mission file. Words blinking. Subject 9. Activate only in case of planetary threat." Flash then blackness, the human gasped, pulling off the helmet, his face pale, sweat pouring down. But his hands didn't shake this time. "I saw something," he whispered. "Flames, voices, my name, no. A number, 9. They called me 9. The buyer nodded. "That's your designation. You were one of the last experimental soldiers made on Earth. Genetically enhanced, emotionally controlled. Memory locked for safety." 9 sat back, breathing slow. "Why unlock me now?" The buyer looked out the window. "Because war is coming again, worse than before. The empires have grown bold. And Earth is gone, but not forgotten." 9 looked at him, something changing in his eyes. "Are you one of us?" The buyer smiled sadly. "I was once, long ago, but I escaped before they wiped me. I've been hiding, searching, waiting for one of you to show up again." Outside the ship, a warning light blinked red. The buyer ran to the panel. "No," he said under his breath. "They found us." "Who?" 9 asked. "Hunters," the buyer said. "Alien bounty killers. Probably sent by the empires after the auction." They must have traced our exit. We have to move. The ship shook again, harder this time. Alarms flashed. One blast hit the back of the ship. Lights flickered. The buyer tossed 9 a small shock pistol. You remember how to use this? 9 caught it and answered. Let's find out. They moved fast down the corridor toward the defense room. The ship's walls echoed with the sound of incoming fire. As they reached the weapon systems, 9 saw the attacker's ship outside. It was massive, sharp, full of red lights like burning eyes. The buyer fired first, disabling their signal jammer, but then a voice came through the radio, slow and cold. Return subject 9, or be destroyed. 9 stepped forward, eyes locked. On the enemy ship, I remember that voice, he whispered. It was the last thing I heard before I forgot who I was. The buyer looked at him. Then it's time to remember everything. The lights went out. For 5 long seconds, the ship floated in total darkness. Only the cold sound of the engines humming beneath the floor. Then the backup power kicked in, flooding the room with dim blue light. 9 stood still, his hand gripping the shock pistol tightly. His eyes stared ahead. But his mind was moving somewhere else, faster than light. He wasn't just reacting, he was calculating, remembering, connecting. The voice on the radio was still ringing in his ears. Return subject 9, or be destroyed. He had heard it before long ago. In another life, when he wore armor, when he followed commands, when he was part of something deadly. They know who I am, 9 whispered. They were watching, even. Before the auction, the buyer turned toward him from the control panel, his expression tense. Yes, and they know what you can become. That's why they're scared. But I don't know what I am yet, 9 said. I don't remember everything. The buyer opened a hidden drawer beneath the pilot's seat. From it, he pulled out a small black case and handed it to 9. Maybe it's time you find out. 9 opened it slowly. Inside was a strange bracelet metal, thin, glowing faint red. Symbols carved into it danced like flame. He touched it carefully, suddenly click. The bracelet latched onto his wrist. He gasped as a sharp sting ran through his arm, not painful, but deep, like something waking up inside his bones, something ancient, powerful. What is this? He asked. The key, the buyer said. That device was made for only one person, you. It connects to something buried deep inside your nervous system, something they hid when they locked your memory. It's called the Echo Core. The Echo Core? 9 repeated. The buyer nodded. It's not just data, it's a weapon. A living code that adapts, evolves. You were made to be a soldier who learns faster than machines, who changes in real time. That bracelet just turned it on. 9 felt heat spreading through his chest, not fire, but energy, controlled and focused. He looked at his hands again. They were the same, yet now something pulsed beneath the skin, silent but alive. A new voice echoed through the ship's comms. This time robotic and cold. Target locked. Prepare for boarding. 9 moved before he thought, running to the back of the ship where the cargo bay doors were. He tapped the panel and watched on the screen as a long alien vessel began to dock. Claws extending like arms of steel, the buyer appeared beside him, placing a small headset over 9's ear. Listen when they come in. They won't talk, they'll try to kill you fast, you can't let them. 9 nodded, breathing slowly, feeling everything, his heartbeat, the ship's vibrations, the silent rhythm of danger. It was all clearer now. Sharper, the doors hissed open, and 3 alien soldiers stormed in tall. Armored, no faces, only black helmets and glowing red eyes. One aimed a plasma rifle at 9 and fired. 9 spun left, ducked, and in one smooth motion, fired back one shot, straight to the attacker's chest. A crack of lightning, then silence. The second charged, a sword-like blade in its hand. 9 waited until the last second, then sidestepped, grabbing the alien's arm and twisting it with precision. The bone cracked and the alien dropped, unconscious. The third hesitated for half a second. That was enough. 9 launched forward with unnatural speed, striking the enemy's helmet and sending sparks flying. The fight was over in less than 15 seconds. Nine stood still, chest rising and falling. His eyes didn't blink. His body was calm. But something inside him was awake now, no longer sleeping. The buyer stepped beside him, eyes wide. You didn't hesitate, not even once. I didn't need to, Nine said quietly. It was like I'd done it before hundreds of times. You have, the buyer said. You just didn't remember until now. They dragged the bodies into the airlock and ejected them into space. Cold and silent, the ship turned away from the docking zone and moved into deeper territory. Beyond the trade routes, where scanners were weak, inside the med bay, Nine sat on the edge of a table while the buyer scanned his wrist. The bracelet was now fully active, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. You're changing faster than I expected, the buyer said, looking at the data. The core is adapting to you in real time. That's not supposed to happen this fast. What does that mean? Nine asked. It means you're not just waking up, the buyer said. You're evolving. Nine looked up. So what now? The buyer leaned against the wall, thinking. Now we find the others. If you survived, maybe some of them did. 2. And if they're still out there, we'll need them, because what's coming will destroy every trace of what humanity used to be. Nine's voice was low, steady. Then let's find them, but in the shadows of deep space, far away. On a hidden command ship. A different voice spoke through static asterisk. The stars were gone, outside the ship's window. Only darkness remained, no suns, no moons, no light. It was as if the galaxy itself had closed its eyes, hiding something old and dangerous in the silence. Nine stood near the window, staring into that black space. His reflection looked back at him, eyes sharper now, shoulders straighter. He didn't look like a slave anymore. He looked like a weapon. Behind him, the buyer worked fast at the ship's controls. His fingers danced over the screen, entering a complex route only he could understand. We're close, the buyer said. Another few jumps, and we reach the outer orbit of Planet 9. Nine turned to him. What's on Planet 9? The buyer didn't answer right away. He looked at Nine, his face tense. A prison, he said. One that doesn't exist on any map. A place where they hide what they can't kill. Nine's eyes narrowed. And who's there? The buyer walked toward him and placed a hand on his shoulder. Maybe others like you, or maybe something worse. But the answers you're looking for, they're buried in that place. The ship made the jump, lights flickering for a moment as it tore through space. When they came out, Nine saw it as a small black world, hidden behind a dying star. No cities, no signs, just a single spinning satellite orbiting the surface. There it is, the buyer whispered. Planet 9. Suddenly, a sharp alarm echoed. Through the ship, red lights flashed. Missile lock. The buyer shouted, they found us again. From the side of the star's shadow, a sleek enemy ship appeared twice their size. Painted jet black with no lights, it had no name, no markings, only one goal: destroy Subject 9. Nine jumped into the co-pilot seat, his fingers already moving. Across the weapon system. They're faster, he said calmly. We can't outrun them in a straight line. We don't need to, the buyer replied. We just need to fall. He slammed a button, and the ship nosedived toward the surface of Planet 9. Straight into the atmosphere, through fire, smoke, and cloud. The enemy followed, launching plasma missiles as they dropped. Explosions lit up the sky, burning clouds into dust. Nine activated the rear shields, blocking 2 hits, but a third rocked the ship hard. Sparks flew from the ceiling. The engine began to smoke. We're not going to make it, Nine shouted. We don't have to land clean, the buyer said, pulling back hard on the controls. Just hard enough to survive. The ship crashed through the cloud layer like a meteor. Its hull cracked, wings breaking off in pieces. They slammed into the planet's frozen ground with a deafening roar. Ice and fire flying in all directions. When the noise stopped, everything was still. Nine opened his eyes slowly, pain running through his side. The ship was tilted, broken, metal, twisted like torn paper. He looked around and saw the buyer slumped over the controls. Bleeding from his forehead, 9 pulled him free, dragging him through the smoke toward the exit. Outside, the ground was white with ice and ash, and the sky was gray like dead stone. They had landed on a world where light had died. "Can you move?" 9 asked. "Enough," the buyer replied, coughing. "We need to find the entrance. Before they find us." They moved across the ice field, the ship burning behind them. Every step was slow, heavy, like walking through frozen fog. Then 9 saw it. Half buried in the ice was a door metal, wide, old, covered in strange earth markings. One symbol stood out, a phoenix, wings on fire. The same symbol burned into 9's bracelet. "This is it," 9 said. "I know this place." He placed his hand on the panel, and the door clicked. Lights blinked green. The ground shook as the door opened, revealing a dark tunnel going deep underground. They entered the prison world. Inside, it was cold and silent. Rows of sealed pods lined the walls. Each one contained a shape, a human shape. Asleep, frozen in time. Some were scarred, some half cybernetic. But all of them had the same mark: Project Phoenix. "This was a vault," the buyer whispered. "Earth's last safe house when the war was lost. They didn't die. They were hidden." 9 stepped closer to one pod. His heart stopped when he saw the face inside. One he didn't remember, but somehow knew. A girl, maybe his age, maybe younger. Her eyes were closed, but her hand rested on the glass as if reaching out. Her wrist had a bracelet just like his. "She was one of us," 9 said. "They were all left behind." Suddenly, a deep voice echoed through the chamber. "Welcome back, Subject 9. You are not authorized to activate the vault." Red lights flashed across the room. Alarms triggered. The buyer grabbed 9's arm. "We need to move. The vault AI is still online. If it sees you as a threat, it'll lock the whole system." 9 looked back at the pods, at all the sleeping humans trapped in ice. "I'm not leaving them again," he said. And for the first time since the auction, something different appeared in his voice. Not confusion, not fear, but command. The first name he ever spoke wasn't his own. It slipped from his lips like a whisper pulled from a dream. "Alea." The sound echoed softly through the frozen vault, bouncing off metal walls and icy glass. 9 didn't know where the name came from. He just knew it mattered, more than anything else ever had. The girl in the pod didn't move, but something deep inside 9 did. Like a lock turning without a key. Behind him, the buyer stared with quiet shock. "What did you say?" "I don't know," 9 said, his voice low. "But when I looked at her..." The name came back, Alea. More memories flickered in his mind, flashes of a training room. Laughter, 2 children running through a corridor under red lights. A promise made with broken hands. "We survived together." It wasn't just a dream, it was real. The buyer placed a hand on 9's shoulder. "She was in your unit, one of the last 12. They paired you two as emotional mirrors. What she felt, you felt. If she hurt..." 9 touched the pod's glass gently. "Why can't I remember everything?" "The echo core protects your mind," the buyer explained. "Too much at once can break you. But every time you get closer to someone from your past, it lets more memories return." The lights in the vault flickered red again, unauthorized. "Presence detected," the AI voice warned. "Lockdown in 60 seconds. 9 turned to the control panel, typing fast. "Can we override it?" "No," the buyer said. "Only someone in the system can open it safely." 9 paused, then looked down at his wristband. "What if I already am?" He whispered. He placed his wrist against the central command scanner. The red light blinked. "Scan detected. Subject 9. Echo core active. Access level confirmed." The vault lights turned blue, and a deep hum filled the air. Slowly, one by one, the pods began to thaw. Mist rose from the chambers as glass slid open. The frozen warriors inside began to move slow at first, confused, weak, but alive. 9 stepped back as the girl, Alea, opened her eyes. She gasped, eyes wide, chest rising with a sudden breath. Her gaze locked on his, and for a moment, nothing else in the galaxy existed. 9? She asked, voice shaking. He hesitated, then nodded. Yeah. I think I'm back. She smiled faintly. You took long enough. The other survivors awoke around them, 12 in total. Each one marked by the same program. All of them had memories that didn't fully return, but they knew one thing for sure. They were soldiers, made for war, and they had been left behind. Suddenly, the entire room shook. A violent tremor rolled through the floor, and the blue lights blinked red again. The buyer rushed to the control panel, his face pale. No. No, they found us. Who? Alea asked, her voice still weak. The Null Fleet, the buyer replied. They were sent to erase everything related to Project Phoenix, and that means us. Outside the vault, in the cold dark sky above Planet 9, 5 massive enemy ships broke through the clouds like shadows crawling across the stars. Their mission was clear. Erase the past, kill the survivors, bury the truth. 9 looked around at the others, some barely able to stand, others already remembering how to fight. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and half awake. But they weren't afraid. We need to get to the surface, 9 said. Now. The buyer pointed toward an old transport shaft hidden behind the wall. That elevator leads to the surface hangar. If the escape craft still works, we can get out maybe. Alea grabbed a plasma blade from a broken weapons rack. Then we move, before they take everything again. The group rushed into the tunnel, boots hitting steel floors, alarms screaming behind them. 9 ran beside Alea, his heart pounding not with fear, but with fire. The closer he got to her, the more his mind opened. He remembered their last mission. The ambush, the explosion, the betrayal from someone they trusted. He remembered her screaming his name as they were dragged apart. He remembered the pain of forgetting it all, and now he remembered something else, his real name. He stopped for 1 second and whispered it under his breath, a name lost for years. Kale. Alea turned to him, eyes wide. You remember? He nodded slowly. My name was Kale. 9 was just a number, but Kale is who I was, who I am. The elevator doors opened with a hiss, revealing the frozen hangar above dark. Quiet, but not empty. A new danger waited above, but this time, Kale wasn't running from it. He was ready to face it, because a name forgotten can be dangerous, but a name remembered can start a revolution. Asterisk, the floor remembered their footsteps. Long before silence took the vault, before time froze their hearts in glass, these warriors had walked this metal ground, trained on it, bled on it, dreamed of a war that never came. Now they were walking again. Kale, once known only as Subject 9, led the way through the abandoned hangar. Behind him, Alea moved like wind through shadow. Fast and sure, the others followed, waking soldiers with names still lost, but fire returning to their eyes. Outside, the sky above Planet 9 boiled with red clouds. 5 enemy ships loomed like mountains in orbit, preparing for full strike. Inside, dust hung in the air, like ghosts. But the energy in the room had changed. The war that never came was now knocking. Kale stopped in front of a sealed blast door, its edges marked with the old Phoenix symbol. There's something behind here, he said. Something big. The buyer stepped forward, tapping his fingers on a broken console. If I'm right, this is where Earth hid its final weapon cache, untouched for years. He pulled out a thin metal card and slid it through the lock. The door opened with a hiss, releasing a rush of cold air and glowing light. What they saw inside made every breath stop. Rows and rows of high-grade armor, plasma weapons, cloaking belts, magnetic blades, and mind-linked gear, all made for humans, all untouched, all waiting. This is, Alea whispered, a war bunker. No, the buyer said quietly. This is a resurrection, one by one. The survivors stepped forward, choosing armor that felt familiar, weapons that fit their hands like memory. As they suited up, something Deeper than strength returned to them, purpose. Kale stood still for a moment, staring at the chest plate marked with canine in faded white letters. He touched it slowly, then placed it over his heart, locking it in place. "I was made to fight," he said, "but I choose to rise." He turned to the others, not as numbers. He pointed at each of them, calling names as if they had never been lost. Silas, Nova, Juno, Dax, Ray, Soren, Flint, Alea. They nodded, faces hardening. Names once erased were returning from the ashes. A voice crackled through the hangar's old speaker system, deep and metallic. "Planet 9 is in violation of Galactic Code 88. Prepare for extermination." "Not today," Kale said coldly. The buyer brought up the hangar's launch panel. One craft still works. A stealth-class fighter called the Revenant. It's fast-armed and invisible to scanners, but only holds 6. Kale looked around. "Then the rest stay and hold." "This place." Alea stepped up. "No one gets left behind again." "I know," Kale replied. "But if we don't send a message to the other hidden vaults, they'll all be wiped out. We need a spark to light the others." The plan was clear. Kale, Alea, Silas, and 3 others would take the Revenant, break past the enemy blockade, and reach the data tower on Titan's moon, where they could send the ancient distress signal meant for all surviving Phoenix units across the stars. The rest would hold the vault, defend it from the incoming assault, even if it meant dying to buy them time. As the Revenant powered up, the hangar began to rumble. A massive enemy transport landed outside, its doors opening to reveal an army of black-armored drones, cold, silent, and programmed to kill. Kale placed his hand on Alea's shoulder. "If we don't make it, you finish the signal. You'll make it," she said. "You always do." The ramp closed, engines roared, and the stealth ship blasted into the sky, cutting through storm clouds and enemy fire. Its cloaking system engaged mid-flight, turning the ship into a shadow, unseen, unheard, below, in the heart of Planet 9. The vault defenders took position. Flint, now armed with dual blades, grinned. "You know what I love most about hopeless battles?" "What?" Ray asked. "We only lose once." Outside the vault, the first wave of enemy drones rushed forward, cold and endless inside. The soldiers who had been left behind raised their weapons, but they weren't slaves anymore. They were the army beneath the dust, and they were done hiding. The galaxy had forgotten what humans could do, but Kale was about to remind them. Inside the Revenant, the stolen stealth ship roared through black space, cloaked from the enemy's eyes, silent like a ghost. Behind him sat Alea, Silas, and 3 others, all steady, all ready. Every one of them once written off as obsolete, lost, or worthless. None of them believed that anymore. Ahead of them, the Titan data spire floated above the icy moon, a tall needle-like tower stretching into orbit. Old Earth tech ran through it, built before the fall, used now by the empires to control information. Kale's goal was simple: break in, hijack the signal core, and send a message to every surviving Phoenix unit in the galaxy. If even one heard it, it would be enough. But the enemy was already waiting. 3 null-class destroyers hovered around the tower, armed and alert. They knew the Revenant was coming, even if they couldn't see it yet. Inside the ship, Kale stood and faced his team. "This is it. We don't get second chances. If we fail, the others die on Planet 9, and humanity fades with them." Alea stood beside him. "Then we don't fail." The ship uncloaked just seconds before impact. Bursting into light like a comet, it dove straight toward the tower, dodging plasma fire. Weaving between laser storms, Kale took the controls, calm and focused. Like his body had waited for this moment his whole life. They crashed through the outer wall of the spire with a controlled blast. Metal bending like paper, sparks flew as they landed hard inside the central corridor. Alarms screamed all around them. Enemy guards rushed in, hybrid droids with no emotion, no fear. Kale was faster. He charged forward, FISTS blazing, guns firing. Every move was instinct. Every strike was precise. The echo core burned bright in his body now, not just active, but awakened. One guard tried to speak. Subject 9, stand down, or Kale didn't let him finish. Silas covered the left flank. Alea took the rear. The rest moved like a storm. Human minds. Soldier hearts. Unstoppable force. Room by room, they climbed the tower. Higher and higher, fighting every step. Behind them, bodies fell. Ahead of them, the signal corps waited. Finally, they reached the top chamber, an ancient Earth transmitter. Still glowing blue, half forgotten by time, Kale stepped forward, entering the old override codes. The screen blinked once. Welcome, Phoenix Commander. His hands moved fast, sending the call across hidden networks. Secret satellites, deep channels. Long believed to be dead, the message was simple. This is Kale, Subject 9. We survived. You can too. Wake up, rise, fight. For 1 second, everything was still, then confirmation. One signal blinked green, then 2, then 4. Then 20, all across space. Forgotten vaults came alive. Stasis pods unlocked. Survivors awoke. The army of the forgotten was waking. But the tower shook violently. Kale turned to see the outer wall crack open. A tall figure floated down from above, dressed in black armor, red veins glowing beneath it. His face was pale, familiar, the traitor. "Hello, Kale," the man said. "Still pretending you're worth something?" Kale's eyes narrowed. "You sold us out. You were one of us, K1. You were supposed to lead us, not bury us." K1 laughed coldly. "I led the ones who had value. You were defective, unfinished, broken." Alea stepped forward. "He's not broken. He's the reason we're still breathing." K1 raised his hand, a weapon forming from his arm. "Then let's see if your little fire can survive the storm." The fight exploded. Kale rushed forward. Blade and fist, his every movement was faster than light, stronger than steel. But K1 was powerful too. Enhanced beyond limits, their battle tore through the tower, crashing into walls, breaking floors. Their past written in every blow. "You were nothing." K1 shouted, "You were trash." Kale stared at him, blood on his lip, fire in his eyes. "I was what they left behind," he growled. "But I became what they couldn't control." With a final cry, Kale activated the last surge of the echo core, a blast of light and memory shooting through his veins. His strike landed clean. K1 dropped. Broken and still, the tower shook again. Systems failing, explosions below. "We have to go." Alea shouted. Kale looked at the screen. Dozens of vaults now glowing green. His message had spread. He smiled softly. "We did it." The team escaped just before the tower exploded behind them. The revenants soaring into space, damaged but alive below them. Across distant stars, vaults opened. One by one, the forgotten stood up. They were human, they were ready, and the galaxy would remember what it tried so hard to forget. The worthless were never worthless. They were weapons waiting to wake.